Now, let's talk about some problems of theories of balance of power. And as I mentioned before, briefly, the relationship between the system of balance of power and small powers. Since the balance of power is searching for only stability or equilibrium for international system, sometimes small powers are sacrificed in the process. So in order to make a balance of power or stability or equilibrium in the region, they don't care about the life and death of small powers. So in the process of making balances of power, in European history and East Asian history show some examples of those who were sacrificed in the process. So historically, balance of power was often achieved at the expense of small powers. I mentioned before, Korea and Poland are the best, it's a little awkward term, but a good example of the small countries which were sacrificed in the process of making a balance of power. Now, I want you to listen very carefully of this part. Second problem of balance of power is that, is a balance of power a war deterrent, preventing war, or a pushing factor? What is pushing factor? Something or some person that initiates certain event. For example, Hitler was a pushing factor of World War II in Europe. Or Kim Il-sung was the pushing factor of the Korean War in East Asia. Pushing factor. So, the balance of power, does the balance of power system work as a deterrent factor or pushing factor for the war? The fundamental assumption of balance of power is that if power is equally distributed, wars are not unlikely to break out. If power is balanced, then wars are unlikely to break out. However, Professor Ogansky claimed that historically, he searched about the 400 years of European history, and he figured out this maxim that wars were broken out between those whose capabilities were equally distributed. In European history, many wars were broken out between the two countries whose capabilities, whose power were equally distributed. But instead, when there was a power gap, power difference between the two countries, wars did not break out. Right? If country A has a superior power over country B is never going to challenge country A. But if country A's power and country B's power are equally distributed, there's a lot of chances for war to be broken out. So Ogansky claims that assumption of balance of power theory is wrong. So balance of power is a pushing factor for a war, not a war deterrent. Let me introduce Ogansky's arguments more details. He said that balance of power is simply established only for equilibrium. It's not directly related to world peace. In order to make equilibrium or balance of power, small wars can be broken out. But if, as a result of it, the world peace is established, those small wars don't make any difference. It's so trivial. But Oganski continued that war usually can be broken out when power is balanced between those with two similar capabilities. But conflicts in reality can be deterred, can be delayed or stopped, not because power is balanced, but because the fear of destruction caused by a second strike could be balanced. Now, let me explain about the second strike and first strike first. If the war breaks out, the country A starts a war against country B. Country A initiates a war with the first strike. We call that preemptive strike. And the targets of the country A's preemptive strike are military bases and factories of country B. Right? Now, for the country B, got a surprise attack from country A, all the bases and factories were destroyed. Now, country B is ready for the second strike, which is retaliation strike. What's going to be the target of the second strike in country A? Military bases, factories? No. Cities of country A, particularly capital city of country A. So it targets the politicians and the important decision makers in the capital city. So the target of preemptive strike is military bases and factories, and that of retaliation strike is the capital city. So once you initiate war against country B, you might take the challenge of losing your life because of the retaliation strike by country B. So the countries with similar capabilities have enough chances to have war, but they don't go to war directly. Why? Because of fear of destruction, fear of retaliation strike could be balanced. I can destroy country B, but country B also has a similar capability as mine, so it can destroy me with the same strength as I did to the country B. So no nation will initiate attack for fear of retaliation, particularly in the nuclear age. During the Cold War period, the bilateral tensions between the two superpowers were tremendous and formidable, but they never started a third world war. Why? Because they feared of the enemy's retaliation attack. The Soviet Union never initiated war against the United States with nuclear weapons because the 8 million people in Moscow were the hostage of American nuclear capability. If America got a surprise attack by the Soviet Union with the nuclear weapons, America might attack or destroy Moscow and would kill the decision makers of Soviet Union and all other people. 8 million people of Moscow were the American hostage, and 10 million New Yorkers were the hostage of the Soviet Union. That's why America, neither Soviet Union, did not initiate war against each other. And Oganski said that's the balance of terror. So war is deterred because of balance of terror, not by balance of power. Because that terror is balanced, war could be deterred among the enemies, between the enemies. So the med effect is naturally formed. Med means mutually assured destruction. Because with the med effect, the terror is balanced. That's why war did not break out between the two countries with similar capabilities. So balance of power in the age of superpowers in the 20th century. In the 20th century, people witnessed the two superpowers which never existed before in human history. With the emergence of balance of superpowers, balance of power has lost its utility. And characteristics of the superpower rivalry in the 20th centuries or the concentration of power to the United States as well as the Soviet Union, and also they were the fixed enemy. Concentration of power and fixed enemy. With the two elements, balance of power lost utility in the age of superpowers. Remember, the two preconditions for balance of power are this concentration of power, so it's easy to make alliance or destroy them, and also no fixed enemy. But during the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union was the fixed enemy to the other countries. Now, let me introduce briefly about the characteristics of superpower. Superpower is a dominant position with extensive ability to exert influence or project power in a global scale. So that superpower can dominate the world with economic, military, technological, political, cultural strength, as well as diplomatic and soft power influence. You name it. In every field of international relations, superpower can exert influence or project power in anywhere in the world. There were two superpowers during the Cold War period, but after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the US now is the sole superpower in the world.